The following is a special presentation of the Decibel Geek Podcast.
Hi, this is Michael Wagener, and you're watching Decibel Geek TV.
This is Decibel Geek. You're watching Decibel Geek TV.
Hey, I'm Aaron Camaro.
And this is Joshua Toomey.
You're watching Decibel Geek TV.
Right now.
This is the Decibel Geek Podcast with Aaron Camaro and Cyznszak.
All right, we're finally back. The Rock and Pod Expo has been a success. It's behind us. It's over. It's time to get back to business right here on the Decibel Geek Podcast. My name is Aaron Camaro, joined as always by my friend. I can't believe he's even here, but here he is. The man who put it all together for us last week, worked his butt off at the Expo, barely survived it all, but he's here, and he's Cyznszak.
If you can believe your ears. I'm sick.
He finally found his radio voice, people. That's what it looks like.
But no, it was so fun to meet everybody in person and hang out and talk music and then of course the night before the pre-party was great.
That was awesome.
The
man.
bands were awesome.
All three of those bands blew minds that night. I've talked to different people and say, oh, the Tip was great, and Denman was great, and the Desolation Angels, I think, really were the surprise of the night because they came out and just freaking killed it, and everybody was blown away by it. Thankfully, we've got great memories from the Rock and Pod Expo. We're going to share them with the VIPs, and we're going to share a little bit with you right here today. Check out our Facebook page. Love us on Instagram. Do all the stuff that you can do to support us, and we're going to keep rocking for you. So here you go. Live to digital. Right here on the Decibel Geek Podcast from the Rock and Pod Expo, first ever 2017. Our special guests, Toby Wright and Michael Wagener. This is our producers panel.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rock and Pod Expo. And please give a warm welcome to the Decibel Geek Podcast with Aaron Camaro and Cyznszak.
Thank you. Like I said, we're really excited to be here. This is something that I know Chris has put a lot of work into to make happen. It warms my heart to see so many rock and rollers and so many podcast supporters out here making this happen. It's blown me away. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. For you. Let's hear it.
All right, so
then on top of that, look what we got going on up here.
Yeah, this is an incredible honor, and Kevin Beamish was talking about possibly making it in time, but I guess he was too tight on time to come, and he came in late to town, so we're going to go ahead and start. If he joins us, we can throw a mic up real fast and get him on board, but we're going to go ahead and start because you guys, we want to stick to the schedule and everything. So obviously we've had both of these guys on our show multiple times, and when it comes to rock and metal history, you needn't go any further than these two men right here on stage. So if you haven't checked out the discography of Michael Wagener or Toby Wright, pull your phone up on your Google machine and look up their names and their discographies, and you'll be pretty much blown away. So
yes, and you're all, seriously, if you don't know that, you're in the wrong place.
Yeah, why are you here?
Cupcake Factory's right up around the corner.
I gotta assume that we're all nerd family in here, right?
Yeah. Oh, we love it. We all do. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah. So thanks to both of you for being willing to give this insane idea a shot and show up for this. And it's great to have you on board.
Sure.
So one thing I wanted to bring up first is you've both worked with many famous people, and I'm not digging for dirt, so you don't even have to name names. But what are some kind of horror stories of albums you've worked on where something just went completely sideways and you had no idea it was going to happen? Maybe with one of the albums you've worked on that we would know.
There's none.
None? It all went perfectly?
All good.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, maybe,
I'm gonna have to second the motion.
Yeah?
Maybe Tooth and Nail, because Toby and I we worked together. That was a pretty
Well, that's a testament to you guys that as producers in your career to have never ever had that really happen to you. It speaks to you what you guys bring to it, more than just pushing the buttons and trying to get guys to do the way you vision it, but to be able to wrangle a band. Is that ever difficult? Does the partying ever get in the way?
Well, we're not in the 80s anymore.
Right.
So it has calmed down a lot. But also, when you produce a record, you pick the people and the band that you like. You pick the music that you like. And from then on, it's not working anymore.
Yeah.
So, there's always discussions. It's music. It's always something that is debatable, but not horror stories as per se.
I'm not, like I said, you don't have to name names. I'm just saying. But well, here's a question. Like, I think I know with Michael, you came from a musician's background to start with. But when did you decide that being a producer was what you wanted to be?
I didn't decide that. I was engineering Dawkins' first album, and when the cart was completely in the dirt, Don decided that I'm now the producer. That's how I became a producer.
Wow. That's an interesting position to be put into.
Well, what happened was, we were in Germany, and they had brought the American stroke tuners that run on 60 cycles, and Germany's 50 cycles. So after 3 days, everything was completely out of tune.
Oh, wow.
And we didn't know why it was. And then Don goes, well, you're the producer now. I go, thank you. So
put out the fire, Michael.
How about we use those German tuners?
Right. Now, what about you, Toby? When did you decide you wanted to do this?
I got into it mostly on the technical side.
Yeah.
Brought in, I play a band called Bright Rock.
Yeah. We played them a lot on the show.
Them, and their manager said these are the best sounding things I've ever heard. We produced the record.
Wow.
Thrown right in.
Nice.
Wow.
That's how that one started. So.
Yeah, I know our Canadian friends have definitely turned this on to Brighton Rock. Definitely. That's something I never knew about growing up. That's a great band.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. They're actually back together now.
That's right. They put out really good music too.
Yeah, when we had them, when we had you on the show, like our friends Rich and Wally, they're up in Canada, and they're friends with the Brighton Rock guys, and we told them that we interviewed Toby, and they had told us oh my God, Toby Wright! They were just so stoked to hear your name. Like, we had so many fun times with them. But I just get the impression from the interviews we've done with both of you that, it's not just a business thing. You guys really become family with these bands you work because it's a very intimate thing to make an album together. You're pretty much living with each other doing it. Yeah. So.
Funny thing is, Frank Wilkerson was the first band that did in America.
Nice. See the connections being made here now? This is great to have you guys here together.
That's awesome. So, the 80s were a much different time, and you guys worked with a lot of big bands through that period of time, and then things completely changed in the 90s. What was your... what was your...
Maybe not for you guys.
What was your opinion of the whole grunge wave, and how did it affect you as a producer?
Well, let's put it that way. When that came up, I went and put audio down and went into video.
Right.
That was my idea about grunge.
Yeah. Okay. Did you have any grunge bands that sought you out to do their records, or was it kind of a whole different wave of even producers?
Well, I turned down Soundgarden.
You turned down Soundgarden. Wow. So was it Bad Motorfinger? Was it that album?
When you were successful in the 80s, then the grunge bands didn't even want to work with you.
Right.
They were on a completely different island.
Right.
So, and they go, no, he's done all the hair bands, we don't want to work with him.
So you got stereotypes. Well, Toby, you actually flourished during that time. You worked on one of the most hairband-sounding hairband albums with Crazy Nights by Kiss.
Right. I did.
But then you went on to work, of course, with Metallica, and then the thing that a lot of people know you for is the work with Alice in Chains. So you saw the sea change as it was. Was it a big difference to you at the time?
Just a lot more work.
A lot more work?
But that's good grunge.
That's a great grunge.
Yeah, that's the best grunge there is.
Right.
But yeah, it came, from doing a bit of engineering and producing in that 80s era, and then turned the corner into the Alice in Chains market.
Right.
Because I heard them the first time and I was turned on. I wanted that band.
Yeah, because Alice in Chains. That's a great transition band from one to the other because they were doing the same thing, transitioning from that kind of music and that kind of sound into what they would become also. So you went right along with that, and you're so well known for your Alice in Chains albums and work with that band. That's pretty amazing stuff. What are some of the best memories you have of working with Alice in Chains? I know there's got to be a billion of them, right?
They go on forever.
Yeah.
It's like Chris said, we have there's an intimate relationship when you have a record. I did 6 or 7 of them.
Yeah.
So we all, just bonded really heavily. And it's, quite a wonderful experience to work with them. They're amazing musicians.
Well, let me ask you this: how did you get your start, your introduction with Alice in Chains?
Their A&R guy, named Nick Turzo.
Yeah.
I was friends with him, and I just kept bugging him, and finally he said, "I got 2 songs for a movie that you can do.
Yeah.
Try that out." And so it was 2 songs that were on the Last Action Hero soundtrack.
Right.
Last Action Hero.
Bitter and What the Hell Have I? And I started with those 2 songs, and they didn't like the way they were mixed, so I got called back to do the Jar of Flies record. Because somebody else mixed it.
Wow.
Right. So they didn't like that. So.
And that's how it began.
And that's how it all began.
That's amazing.
So now the loaded question for Michael. What are your best memories of working with Dokken?
Which one?
That's a fair question.
Well, Don and I met in Germany in 1979, and he basically was the guy who brought me to America.
Yeah.
So from early on, we're good friends. I was sleeping on his couch in the first few months. So we always got along very well.
Yeah.
It's sometimes not easy to deal with egos in the studio, and especially those 2.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I got along with each one of them, and we managed to make a bunch of good records.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. So there's a lot of, well, you go tell him I said this, and you go tell him I said that.
I don't play nobody's in the world.
Yeah. And I remember when we were at Michael's, one of the times we've gone out to interview him, I think I brought up the Dokken album Dysfunctional, because I love the album.
I do too.
But I think he said that's the most aptly titled album of all time. Yes. It was an interesting record for sure, but like that, George and Don, that's got to be an interesting dynamic to deal with as a producer, because you have 2 very strong-willed guys there.
Well, I have to say, they're strong-willed, but they're also brilliant musicians.
Oh, absolutely.
So, if you pull at the same string and you try to do just a good record, then they do understand that, and then, they work on that with you.
Yeah.
They like still work against each other.
Right.
But in the end, it's all about the record.
Right.
If it was up to George, it was all instrumental albums.
Right. Oh, really?
Right.
We don't need a vocal track for that one.
No. In so many words.
Right. All right, well, Toby, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you a little bit about Kiss in front of a room full of Kiss fans.
All right.
I know you love talking about Kiss, but because not everyone heard our Carnival of Souls breakdown discussion, and let me just quantify that they did come to you and they said, we want to sound like Alice in Chains.
They did. They were high on the grunge sound at the moment.
Yeah. Was it mostly Gene, or was Paul 100% on board too?
I think Paul was 100% on board.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, really. Thinking back to that day.
Right.
Bob Ezrin actually introduced me to Gene and said, "He's your guy." So, Gene took that and ran with it.
Yeah.
Here we are.
I didn't know Bob Ezrin introduced you to him.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting mix of people right there.
Right.
Bob, have either of you guys done any work with Bob Ezrin?
I did an Alice Cooper record with him.
Which one was that?
That was a long time ago.
Was that Trash or no? Not Trash. Oh, okay. What about you, Michael? Did you do anything with Bob?
Almost. On that last Alice Cooper record.
Yeah.
he wanted me to come out to Phoenix and get the recording for the original Alice Cooper band.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I didn't at the time.
Oh, okay. Wow, that would be cool.
Yeah, which I heard.
Right. Well, we're here in Nashville, and because neither of you are from here, so I mean, what? Because I didn't hear Michael's southern accent, of course. But, I know we went over this with Michael. Well, what brought you to Nashville? What made you decide that this was the place you wanted to base out of?
Oh, well, let's put it that way. 3 earthquakes, 7 floods, 2 riots, and then I did a record here, and I go, I like it here.
Yeah. So it's basically like it's more, it's got the small town charm, but you still have all the industry stuff too.
Well, the thing is that LA got out of hand.
Yeah.
Too many people, too much crime. And then during that last earthquake in '94, that was the decision.
That was the end.
I wasn't quite sure when to go yet, but then I did an accept record here in Nashville.
Oh yeah.
I was here for 2 months and
right. Oh, okay. I always like to tell people that you were the first one that came, and everyone followed you.
Oh, actually, Wolf was here.
Oh, Wolf beat you here?
That's right.
So Wolf Hoffman was the trailblazer. What about you? Toby? What brought you to Nashville?
Pretty much the same. I was living in LA, and the violence, the earthquake, it all got to me.
Yeah.
Then the decline of the music industry as well.
Yeah.
There weren't as many records being made out there as there were being in here.
Yeah.
And then both coasts were pretty expensive too. So
right.
It was a big thing to come here. And, I've been here about 6 years now. So.
And you've seen it change. Even in 6 years, you've seen it change a lot. I'm sure.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. It's completely different now than it was, especially when you came in the '90s. I mean, it's a completely different town, and it's like we're turning into Los Angeles Junior, at least.
Right. Look around you, my friends.
Yeah,
look around you. This is Rock City right now in the United States. I believe it.
It really is.
I think a true testament to that is the fact when you look at a band like Denver, they come from upstate New York. They are an awesome rock band, as anybody that was at the pre-party last night will attest.
They were amazing.
And they decided we've got to get out of our small town. We've got to go somewhere where we can make an impact. They don't go to New York City. They don't go out to Los Angeles. They come right here to Music City, and work with Michael Wagener, and are producing amazing music. And from what I heard last night, hopefully got some more stuff coming up soon.
That's amazing.
Yeah, to come here, to pass up LA and New York to come to Nashville, I think that's amazing.
Well, from out of town for this, and Greg Rinoff, who's here, wrote the book Van Halen Rising about Van Halen's early years. So he loves Guitar Heroes.
The sale right over there.
Yeah, and I played him the video of him tracking a solo in your studio, of Dakota tracking a solo, and the solo ends, and Michael Wagener just goes, shit. And I was like, if you can get Michael Wagener to do that, you're doing something right.
Well, it was one take.
Yeah.
And then he doubled it in one take.
Yeah, the kid is an insane player. And then I played them High Heels and Leather. And we got done, and he's like, can I hear that again? I was like, yeah. But they're just an amazing band, and with your production technique with their sound, it's a great marriage.
Yeah, I still have that reverb from '85.
Oh, really? Yeah, Michael has like all the gear used on all the albums that you've heard.
Ever. It's amazing. We go over to Michael's studio and we don't want to leave.
It's the happiest place on earth.
We want to take everything with us if we have to go. It's like a rock and roll museum.
It really is.
A beautiful thing.
And every time I go, I ask if I can move in, and he never says yes. One of these days, I'll wear him down.
Well, they all want to move under the stairs where all the demos.
That's where I want to live. I want to be with all the master tapes, all the albums.
We don't show up with albums or with luggage. We show up with reel players.
Right.
Looking over here in the corner.
I can get an ADAT machine. I can. That's a trick. Well, Toby, you've got a very eclectic mix of stuff on your resume. You've worked with a wide variety of bands. Like one of my favorite albums you did was the Home album for Seven Dust. Yeah. That's just an incredible album, and there's just so much big sound to it. And then, of course, Follow the Leader by Korn. That's the best produced Korn album of every album in their catalog, in my opinion. So, I don't know. What would you view as like maybe one of the what is your top tier list of the stuff that you're most proud of from the stuff you've done? Are those two on there?
Those two are definitely in there. And then Uncut, Alice in Chains, one of my favorites because it went from the mixing console directly to the CD.
Really?
The mastering engineer tried to master it and he said, I can't do any better.
That's impressive.
I said, wow, okay, you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, I add this, I add this, I take this away, it makes it worse.
Right.
I'm like, okay, let's go with it. So that's one of my proudest moments, I think. And, the Rehab is a record that I'm pretty proud of as well.
Yeah.
Southern Discomfort.
We were talking about them on our show.
Right, we were talking about it earlier too.
That's incredible.
That's the one. That's one of the ones that came to me with a bass drum loop maybe, and a bass and a little bit of a vocal, and said, "Here, mix that." Okay, now what? How's that? And they went, "Where's the rest of the music?" And I said, "Well, this is what we do to mix."
Right.
And they said, "Well, we need more." So I played mostly everything on the record, so that was a lot of fun.
That's crazy.
See, the work a producer has to do sometimes.
This is true. Well, Michael, what would you say are like the top highlights for you that you're most proud of?
Well, I still like first two school albums.
Oh, they're incredible.
Always.
And then from a mixing standpoint, I liked No More Tears.
No More Tears,
Until it got recorded.
Oh, you did? Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah, okay.
They gave him the Tommy Aldridge.
Master of Puppets. Master of Puppets. This is the guy that mixed Master of Puppets. So that deserves to be and one of our favorite.
We could do this for the next 5 hours.
I'm just going to have you clapping for the rest of the day. But one of the ones we love that we did an album was Unleashed on, an album that got unfairly swept under the rug was Dog Eat Dog by Warren.
Yes.
I mean, just one of the most perfect sounding records with perfect material.
Well, that was the day Rock moved to Canada and Warren's moved in.
Rock moved to Canada. That's the truth. And Michael appears vocally on that album. When you hear the German part on Bitter Pill, that's Michael in there. That's awesome. Which I didn't know until we recorded that with him. Every time I hear it, I'm like, yep, there he is.
It makes so much sense now. The German in the song.
And apparently, Janie Lane loved the German language. Isn't that what you were telling us? A little. Well, let me ask you guys this. I want to ask some industry questions too. What is your opinion on the lack of dynamics these days in the whole loudness wars issue that goes on, where everything is just brick-walled on albums? What's your take on that?
Hate it. I won't do it.
You won't do it?
I won't do it either.
Yeah.
To me, it's white noise with vocal.
Right.
It's a typical industry problem that came through an industry problem.
Yeah.
And luckily now everybody's going against it.
It's finally starting to go away.
Our programs have break down and dynamics is the issue.
I never understood what the point of doing it was.
Well, it kind of came out of boardroom meetings because they would have boardroom meetings, they had like 15 people, they would play in 5 bars or a minute of a song. And if the song was just a little bit louder than the other song,
They'd like it
people
better.
liked it better.
Right.
But if you hear the whole song, if it doesn't build up, if there's no dynamics, it sucks.
Yeah, it's just all noise.
But the loud part, that little bit, and then they like it better, and that's what it's all.
No, that's right. But it's kind of become the standard, although that's good that news that it's moving away from that.
It is, yeah.
Like, Toby, what's your take on it?
Same thing. I think it's anti-music.
It really is.
It's a lot of noise, and people just use their plugins because they have to.
Right.
And I don't agree with that. If you need it, use it. If you don't, then don't.
Right.
That's true. If you're good with your music and you can build in dynamics when you're mixing, I think that's really super important.
Right.
Michael's certainly very good at that.
Yeah.
And it's really. I think that's what music is all about.
Right.
They have those things now, they're called faders.
Right.
Oh, really? I haven't heard of that.
Use them.
Yeah.
That's what they're there
You used
for.
to have, you would breathe and you would have depth, and now it's just like, burn.
Yeah.
You know, and if you're unfortunate enough to have to listen to an MP3,
it's brutal.
it with you, it's like, okay, so you're listening to some Deep Purple or something, it sounds good, and then all of a sudden, like, the new Metallica comes up in the shuffle, and it just explodes twice as loud, but sounds horrible compared to the classic mixing.
There's all that clipping.
Right.
Yeah.
It's too much.
And in most cases, in many cases, I think it's just methodology.
Yeah.
All right. Somehow doesn't sound good, let's slap a compressor on it. And you have other ways of doing that. People who don't learn it.
Right.
Metallica kids, that's people that know what they're doing, and we know where that's coming from.
Right.
It's not coming from the producer.
Right.
Well, yeah. So both of you guys work with Metallica, so that's one band you have in common. So you mix Master Puppets. Well, that's true. Let's focus on Metallica a little bit. I've heard that Lars Ulrich is a tad particular about his drum sound. Is that correct? Sarcasm mode.
Let's put it that way. Both of them, Lars and James, knew exactly where they wanted to go. You know, they saw a little light on the effects right and goes, what is that? Is that reverb? Turn it off. You know, so you had to sleep the reverb back on the left room.
So it's a battle.
Yeah. And it's sometimes very typical that musicians just get their own instrument.
Right.
You know, if the drums are good, he doesn't care about the guitars, but the other way around.
Right.
You know, you as a producer, engineer, you have to sit there and do it all so it makes sense.
Right. So you're trying to please like at least 2 to 4 people at a time. At least. Yeah. I think you told me that the drum tracks for And Justice for All took, I don't know, how many weeks?
6 months.
6 months.
We worked on nothing but drums.
Just the drums.
6 months. That was really good.
They just couldn't stop listening.
I had to edit 2-inch tape.
Yeah, so you got good with a razor blade.
I got really good with it, besides the other.
Oh, well, we can get into those stories too if we want. Did you have a mirror built into your console?
Yeah. I had a mirror, cutting block, and a wrist.
Oh, there you go. And after 6 months of doing drum tracks, you're ready for the wrist.
That's right.
Wow, that was a trip. Well, how do you think things are different compared now to the old days? Because like there's a lot of people now that are doing their albums out of their bedroom, and like it's almost like there's not as much of a currency on real production anymore. It's almost like, oh, I got Pro Tools at home, I can just knock it out in my basement and do it now. But there's still a real need, because like if you listen to you guys' stuff, you honestly can hear a difference between somebody who knows what they're doing and someone who has Pro Tools at their house.
Well, if I have a typewriter, I'm still not Tolstoy.
That's true.
I can't write it all, you know? So I think it comes foremost from the budgetary side.
Yeah.
That the labels, the budgets got cut. Oh, there's ADATs. Buy 60 of those, you know, that's your budget for the record, and produce it yourself. And whoever is the owner of the garage that you're recording, that will be the producer.
Right.
And before, when we did something, a record takes 2 months. You have pre-production, you go through the songs, you pick all that stuff up, you work with the band,
right.
And that's missing.
Yeah.
You know, and then something it's basically a demo of what gets recorded a little bit better.
Right.
And some people do, but I have a problem thinking that musicians doing the technical stuff while they're performing is just a completely wrong thing.
Right.
It's 2 different sides of the coin.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, you need a different perspective, I would think, you know, to keep your vision clear. Someone like you guys that can take a band that's got a vision of what they want and help them get to it the best way that they can. Right.
When I did King's X, halfway through, it was Ty Tabor goes, I am so glad I just have to play guitar.
Right.
You you know?
Yeah.
Because they have produced their own records.
Oh, but what a guitar player. Oh my God.
Absolutely.
Ty Tabor is one of the best guitar players you'll ever hear.
For sure.
Yeah. And with speaking of King's X, you worked with them on one of your music workshops. Like they were the band that was doing it, right?
The other way around in that case. I do workshops where I get a band and we do one song within like 5 days.
Yeah.
And you have people coming in from all over the world to learn how to record.
Yeah.
This was different. This was the beginning of the record for King's X, and the first 4 days you could buy yourself into the studio.
Yeah.
And there were more fans than technicians there.
I believe it. They have very loyal fans.
And paid for some of the traveling costs of the band and stuff.
Right. I got you. Okay.
If you would sit in on a KISS session, would you pay for that?
Absolutely.
There you go.
That'd be the most fun thing in the world. Does that mean you're working with KISS next?
Me?
Yeah. Michael's a big KISS fan, if you don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I know everything about
He's an AC/DC man. Let's get him started on AC/DC.
Right place.
He loves AC/DC.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's tell me
Well, we've asked Michael before if there was one band that you've never worked with before, who would it be? And you said AC/DC would be your number one pick. Toby, if you had a chance to work with any band that you wanted to, who would you choose?
AC/DC, Stones,
Yeah.
something like that. I think that's
Right.
my bucket list is pretty full.
I would say, yeah, for both you guys.
Yeah, well, if you want to know about working with KISS, ask Toby, Michael. He'll tell you all about it. All right. Well, so what's on the docket for you guys now? What are you guys currently working on? What are the projects that these people in the audience here can expect from you in the future?
Well, the next, there's a few ones. I'm working with Vixen right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm working with the Dead Beds.
Okay.
And then next year I'm going to do the next Jasmine Kane record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then there's a band from Germany that probably nobody knows over here that are coming here to do their record here.
What are they called?
I don't know.
So you don't know?
They said we don't know them. I don't know.
I mean, put you on the
The
spot.
Germans don't even know.
There's some German name there.
Something Diva.
Diva? Okay. What about you, Toby? What do you got going on?
I'm just currently developing a few artists here in Nashville.
Yeah.
And then I have, some apps and technology stuff that I'm working on as well.
Awesome.
That, hopefully will help humankind as a whole.
So you're going to be the next Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take that. Developed it, but I'll still know you as the guy that produced Carnival of Souls.
Right. Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, well, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out and showing up for this thing, which is a complete experiment for the first time.
What do you guys think of this? When you see something like this, do you feel hope for the future of rock music, the kind of stuff that you guys, when you look out, do you see that?
It's pretty cool. Every time you can bring people together about music is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers to that.
All right, well, thanks again for doing this, guys, and thank all of you for coming to the Expo. Thanks to Michael Wagener, Toby Wright.
We got the wireless mic. We want to do some Q&A.
Oh, do we want to do some audience Q&A? Yeah, why don't we do that?
Where's that?
There, okay, let's do a little audience Q&A.
Yeah, I'll come down here with you guys.
There you go.
All right, got one right here.
Hey Michael, AJ Zonin. I own tons of MP1s, and of course you used them all, the great records back in the day, Skid Row, Wet Line, everything like that. What would you say was your favorite amp to record with? Since then, have you changed anything? What's your favorite guitar amp for getting great tones out of?
Besides the MP1, you mean? Yeah, the MP1 was, it's not just the MP1, there's a whole other chain of gear that goes with it. Macintosh power amp, and then certain EQs and Furman EQs and stuff like that. I don't have a favorite amp, or didn't have a favorite amp, because we always went and see what the guitars of the musicians sounded like through maybe a whole bunch of different amps. By now, I exclusively use the Kemper for anything. My amps have been on in 2.5 years.
Cool, good question.
Anybody else?
Michael can talk gear for hours.
Yeah, sure.
You got anybody else? Anybody got a question? We got one up front here.
I was going to say, look at that, Chris. We covered it all.
Hi, Toby. I heard that Paul and Gene weren't getting along during Carnival of Souls, and that's why Bruce played on bass on all of Paul's songs. Any truth to that?
Half truth.
Half truth?
Yeah, he played about half the record on the bass.
Did you notice tension between Gene and Paul during the album?
A little.
Are you surprised?
No, but it was, Bruce pushing that record, really every day. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And, he and I just pounded it out. And, when it came time for that kind of stuff, it was, okay, here you go, do your thing. And, then we make it better if it's not as good as it can be, basically. So.
Anybody got another question?
What'd you say?
Darren up front here. I know that guy.
Yeah. How's it going, man? Hey, Michael. I've read online Sebastian Bach said he might work with you on his next album. Have you heard from him or heard anything about that?
I haven't heard from him since Bringing Bach Alive.
Yeah.
Before 2000.
For a behind-the-scenes story, we tried to line it up to where Sebastian was playing Nashville the weekend that we recorded with Michael for the Slave to the Grind albums Unleashed, and we were working on trying to get both of them in the same room for it. It just didn't work out, but it would have been really fun. But we got a great episode out of it anyway. And then we did this, but we also did one on the first album with Michael and Rachel Boland. If you haven't heard that, that's a really good episode. And that was one of the easiest interviews Aaron and I ever did. We just turned the recorder on and let them tell stories. It was great. Oh, we got anybody else? Oh, sorry. All right, who we got next?
I got two, one each.
All right. Speak up.
More money for two.
First question is for Michael. Slave to the Grind. Quicksand Jesus is one of those songs that the more times you hear it, the more things you hear in it. That is just an extremely detailed song. Do you have any stories of how you got that mix and how you got it to sound like that with the guitars and everything that was just kind of swirling around, but everything was still perfectly clear?
Well, you have to pay attention to detail. That's basically goes for everything, and the way I record, I do all the drums for the whole album, and then I do one song at a time. So in other words, you stick with your thinking, with your feeling, with your headphone mix in one song. The whole band is there, and then the ideas just start flowing. Obviously did a whole bunch of pre-production, which I still tend to do to the day, but you leave some stuff open for the studio, and that's how it works. Can we do this? Can we do that? How about this? That's how it comes together.
Thank you.
You had one for Toby?
Yep. Question for Toby is Alice in Chains' vocals are pretty standout because of the interplay between Jerry Cantrell and Wayne. Do you have any stories or anything about how you got that sound on the ones that you worked on? How you harmonized that?
That sound it started with Dave Jersey on the Dirt record, and it kind of we developed it as we went, and I started with them, like I said earlier, on the Jar of Flies record, and we developed that as we went because Lane heard all these harmonies in his head, and it was like an orchestra of vocals in his head, and he could go out and sing. He would say to me, I say, how many tracks do you need? I need 6 on this one. Okay. He'd go out and he'd sing me a melody, and then he'd sing me what turned out to be a harmony, then he'd sing me an alternate melody and another alternate melody, and he just had that all in his head. And a few times I would question him and say, does this fit here? I'll show you when we're done. And so we, after he's finished singing the song, come in and sit down with these faders and, when you hit this line, this melody line needs to take over, and this one needs to take over on the next line, and so on and so forth. And it was a big thing in progress, basically, as we went through each record. and he wanted to keep it growing. And Jerry was, just of the opposite, where he would hear all the instrumentation and orchestration in his head, and he'd know exactly where, what instrument needed to be where, and so on and so forth. And the team was perfect, And I just captured it, and I was lucky to be there.
Yeah. It's got to be pretty heartwarming for you guys to hear from music listeners and aficionados even that take something that you guys helped create and really gets deep into it and comes to you with questions, those deep questions like that. I love them a lot because I always see you guys get such enjoyment from it because it's got to be like an artist seeing somebody truly understand what you're trying to paint. I like that. There's a lot of people like that here tonight.
Do we have any other questions?
Those were all great questions, by the way. Yeah.
Well, let me end with this. You mentioned, would you say Lane is one of the top vocalists you've most loved working with?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss him.
Yeah, he was amazing.
There's nobody out there like him.
Very unique. Yeah. And what about you, Michael? What would you say? Who's your favorite singer that you worked
with? Jolene Turner was
Jolene Turner.
Yeah. Wow. I've worked with a lot of singers that I really like.
Yeah.
Jenny Lane being one of them.
Yeah.
But Joe was that's my thing.
Yeah.
Sitting there and going, hey, can you do it a little bit like in Street of Dreams?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Very cool.
All right, well, if we have no more questions, we're going to adjourn now. And thanks, everybody, for coming out today. Thanks to Michael and Toby Wright.